New developments right now as the world reacts to North Korea's nuclear bomb test, a test that puts that rogue nation one step closer to attaching a nuclear warhead to a missile that could be aimed at the United States. As we await the State Department briefing, the UN Security Council, in an emergency session, just issued a strong condemnation of the North Korean regime's latest test. Joining us now, Mike Baker, former CIA covert operations officer, and rejoining us once again, Gordon Chang, the author of Nuclear Showdown, North Korea Takes on the World. Mike, you've known through your experience as a CIA operative, the world is a dangerous place. Did it just get more dangerous last night?
Well, I think every time they do something, whether it's launch another missile, whether they whatever it is that they're doing, whether it succeeds or fails, it becomes more dangerous because they're learning something else. And I think one of the biggest dangers we've got from this program that the North Koreans are running is the tech transfer that goes on. There's a very robust underground environment between the North Korean, the Iranian, the Russian, the Pakistani scientists in the dealing of nuclear technology. And I think that's a very, very dangerous element to this.
How do we stop that?
Well, the problem is we have very little room left with North Korea. It's gotten to the point where we've kind of learned to live with this problem. And the danger there, of course, is, there are certain people in the administration now saying, well, if we can do that with them, certainly we can live with an Iranian, nuclear program. But I don't know that there's not an easy answer to it.
It's one thing to live with a North Korea that has maybe a nuclear bomb or two, but a North Korea that has an ICBM capable of reaching the United States and a nuclear warhead, that's a different thing entirely.
Well, certainly, because the North Koreans now are on the verge of putting together a usable weapon on top of a long-range missile that can reach just about any city on Earth. And, you talk about how we've become accustomed to it, but the problem is that the North Koreans basically have an unstable militant regime. They've got a big power sponsor in China. They've got friends in Iran who are basically financing their program. And so I don't think how you can come up with a more dangerous scenario than this, especially because North Asia right now is already volatile with China, Japan, Russia, all at each other's throats.
I was talking with Gordon earlier. He said we tend to lean on the Chinese and say get them to stop this. He doesn't seem to think that's a viable solution this time.
He's absolutely right. I'm not a buyer in the idea that somehow we're going to pull China on side with us to bring North Korea into the fold. I just don't see how we constantly fool ourselves into thinking that. If you look at China, and there's a lot of people out there who like to make what they do more complex than it is. Just imagine what's in their best interests and then expect them to do it. It is not in their best interests to promote instability in North Korea. Therefore, they will continue to prop up that regime no matter what we would like them to do.
They are worried about the collapse of the North Korean government, mass starvation, millions of starving North Koreans flooding into China. That's essentially what they're worried about, right?
Well, I think basically the North Korean refugees will move south into South Korea because we have demined at least 3 corridors through the demilitarized zone. The Chinese and the Koreans hate each other. It's been for 600 years. The North Koreans, if they can help it, are not going to go north into China. But China is getting some very important short-term benefits when North Korea creates all these provocations. Because when that happens, we go to Beijing and say, please, 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 help us. And of course, Beijing extracts concessions from us. So this is a bad dynamic for us. We should learn this. This has happened so many times in the past, but we don't seem to understand what's going on between China and North Korea.
Wait a minute, Gordon, you're not saying we don't learn from history.
That's exactly what I'm saying, Mike.
Mike nodding his head in agreement through just about everything Gordon was saying there. Wow, what a story. And it'll be interesting to see whether and how much the president addresses it tonight.
Absolutely.
Mike Baker, Gordon Chang, thank you both.